Hello, we are the Ministry of the Real Truth, and we'd like to thank you for taking the time to come and watch our latest video presentation. Yes, we are the Ministry of the Real Truth. Again, thank you for taking the time to view our latest video revealing the truth about certain cults, movements, factions in the US and the UK that claim to be preaching the true scriptures, the truth about the scriptures, etc., who clearly aren't. One in particular we are going to look at is the US Hebrew Israelites. We'll be looking at their, in the Rastafarian movements, 12 tribes of Israel map charts, etc., as used by them and others to determine, especially the 12 tribes of Israel in New Zealand, etc., supposed to determine your tribal affiliation of one of the 12 tribes, be it Dan, Asher, etc., according to them, these charts, to these people, and also the scriptures. This idea is definitely flawed, as we will reveal to you via our latest video presentation. We have created a type of desktop power slide here on Linux, Ubuntu Creative Studio 20. Slowed down so you can see what we will detail you before we look at another source, a YouTube documentary by Timeline, narrated or created by Simcha Jacobovici in his quest to find the lost tribes of Israel. The documentary is quite long, about an hour or so in length, but we won't be covering that whole thing and narrating through it. We'll just be brief on that. The doc is quite long. Okay, we'll just hit on some main points as we watch that video, or some of that video. You can go watch it in your own time at your own leisure and come to your own opinions, views, understandings of it. And then you can subscribe to our channel if you like it. Add your comments, and we'll get back to them as soon as possible, because we appreciate your comments. We really look forward to them. And give us a like, okay? And then go tell all your friends, hey, the Ministry of the Real Truth is exposing these people, these different cults, because they're blatantly lying to us, giving us bad translations, mistranslations, and so forth. They're steering everyone wrong, okay? They're making claims that aren't biblical, they aren't true. Basically teaching, preaching lies. Okay. That's, we've got nothing personal against those movements, you know. We still see them as people, as, you know, friends or whatever, brothers, whatever, right? But it's just what they're teaching is incorrect biblically, scripture wise. So yeah, we're exposing them on that, making people aware. Okay. Revealing the truths in regard to their falsities. In our power slide presentation, we have maps and charts and said 12 tribal Israel charts for you to view. We will narrate where needed. If you enjoy this video, please subscribe to our channel. Click on that notification bell, so you won't miss out on any videos that we upload as we upload them. Yeah, add your comments and we will answer them as soon as possible, and tell your friends about the Ministry of the Real Truth, and tell them all, like, you know, the Real Truth, Ministry of the Real Truth is exposing these movements, these factions, these charlatans that are just outright lying, mistranslations, bad translations, etc., lying to the people, right? The people want to know the truth. Yeah, so we bring it to the, you know, expose them, expose it for their hype and their fluff. Okay. Yeah, so here we have pictures of the Hebrew Israelites, wherever they are in America, with their different signs and their claims of the 12 tribes of Israel charts being authentic, and it's clearly flawed, as we'll show you in our upcoming video. We'll just have a look at a few of these pictures, have a little narrate on them. Okay, so you're more aware. I don't know where they're standing. Some building outside America. Okay, it's probably that chart that guy's holding. It's probably the 12 tribe of Israel chart or whatever. So this is something. Here we go. Here's the House of Consciousness saying, this Brother Reggie saying the 12 tribe chart is a myth. Okay, and there's all the tribes here: Judah, Joseph, Benjamin, Gad, Levi, Reuben, Simeon, Issachar, Asher, Zebulun, Naphtali, and Dan. Okay, yeah, Brother Reggie's from the House of Consciousness on YouTube. Sarnia. So I guess he was exposing that. Yeah, we did a previous video where they outrightly lied, okay, saying this came from the scriptures and all that sort of stuff, when it didn't. Okay, here's their chart, and according to Genesis 48:49, all these people here are of the tribe of Israel. Okay, the Negroes are from Judah, Puerto Ricans Ephraim, Central Americans Zebulun, Native Indians Gad, Benjamin, Caribbean Indians, South Pacific Islanders Naphtali, and so forth. This is actually all wrong. Okay, it's deceptive. Mexicans aren't Issachar. Okay. Cubans are not Manasseh, as we will show you in our documentary presentation. We'll just have a look at a few more slides and we'll go to that. Okay. Here we go. Here's a deception. This is what this video may be titled as, deception. These are the 12 tribes. Okay, and these the claims by these Hebrew Israelites that these are the people who are of those tribes. Completely false. Okay, as you will see. Okay. Plenty more charts there, but what we'll do is we won't delay it any longer. Here's this guy, timeline, Simcha, Jacobovici, right, and we'll have a listen to what he has to say. Let's quickly go through it.
All these people that were exiled, that we call the lost tribes of Israel, will get up and come back to Israel. And it'll start happening all over in the four corners.
He claims this is a biblical prophecy.
In the Bible, there's a prophecy. And that prophecy says that in the end of time, all these people that were exiled, that we call the lost tribes of Israel, will get up and come back to Israel. And it'll start happening all over in the four corners of the world. And they'll just get up and start moving back. And what if it was actually happening? Here you have this prophecy, and people are actually getting up. They may be in your own neighborhood, and they're packing their bags, and to you, they're just somebody else packing their bags and moving. But in actual fact, they're responding to some kind of biblical post-hypnotic suggestion. I'm not talking about 1,000 years. I'm talking about 2,700-year-old suggestion that they're responding to now. And we could actually film these people and match the prophecy with the events. And the reason it should matter is that because once they do what they have to do, they trigger the apocalypse.
Yes, according to him. Okay. But if you have a look at the Aramaic scriptures, it's actually just different reasons behind it, according to the book of Revelations. We'll try to skip ahead of this to see what he has to say.
Return.
Yeah, basically, all these 12 tribes, all these 10 lost tribes are supposed to return back to
According
Israel.
to prophecy, the countdown to the apocalypse and final redemption begins when the tribes are found, one by one. So this is the challenge before us. How are we going to find millions of people that no one has noticed? When I say find them, I don't mean discovering a people that's never made contact with Westerners. I mean taking very obscure pieces of a puzzle and going to very remote, sometimes dangerous places on the earth, and taking those pieces and putting them together and seeing, does this accord with the biblical prophecy? I have been on a journey, and I invite you to go on this journey with me.
Yes, well, we suggest watch it in your own time, because it's really, really interesting. It'll open your mind to the truth.
In
the
the
real
early
truth.
1980s, I went to Africa to document the plight of the Falashas, the black Jews of Ethiopia.
Falashes.
These people were caught in the midst of persecutions, war, and famine. In 1991, the Falashas made international headlines when they were airlifted by the Israeli Secret Service to Jerusalem. What was little noticed is that the Israelis acted only after the chief rabbi ruled that the Falashas were descendants of the lost tribe of Dan.
Yeah, they admit that the Ethiopian Jews are true Jews, descendants of the lost tribes. Yeah. That's what they're basically saying. So this one rabbi made a statement. Everybody else says, "Oh, okay," because he's probably popular, honoured, recognised. So yeah, they went in there. Maybe the Israeli army, the helicopters, the planes, whatever, picked all these people up and brought them to Israel.
Can you imagine the lost tribes of Israel making front page news? Can you imagine the government of Israel acting on the words of rabbis who say this is the lost tribe of Dan, and suddenly modern aircraft swooping in to Civil War Ethiopia as people from ages ago are airlifted into modern Israel? Seeing the Ethiopians in Jerusalem, I thought, was this just an anomaly? Or was the biblical prophecy beginning to unfold? Seven years after the Falasha airlift, in a tomato packing plant near the Gaza Strip, I came across a small group that most Israelis take for Thai guest workers.
Immigrant workers.
They are a people who come from the hill country on the India-Burma border. They say they are descendants of the lost tribe of Menashe, and there is at least one rabbi here who believes them.
We have to go and bring them before the Messiah arrives in Israel. Our tradition teaches us that in the end of days, the Jews, who are the descendants of the tribes of Benjamin and Judah, will bring the lost tribes to Israel so that they will participate in Messianic times.
I believe that the whole thing is in the realm of religious belief rather than in the realm of reality. That there is a strong necessity to find the tribes for religious theological reason, both Jewish and Christian. And those are the two religions that are active in tribe seeking, each one in its own way. And all the attempts to find them, I think, have no sound historical evidence. It is the belief that keeps the 10 lost tribes alive, not the people themselves.
She's a skeptic, but she gets proven wrong. Because how do these people know these old traditions or remember them? They don't put them into practice without even knowing who they are.
Despite the skeptics, Rabbi Abichal has assisted hundreds of these people to emigrate to Israel and has supervised their formal return to Judaism.
There's different
Can the rabbi
reasons
be right?
why her
Is the key to the future submerged in these people's past?
This is where it all began.
The story begins 2,900 years ago, when after Solomon's death, his biblical kingdom split into two. In the south, Judea, home to 3 tribes, including Judah, which gave its name to modern-day Jews. In the north, there was Israel, home to the people that would later be called the lost tribes of Israel. A 100 years after the prophets predicted the event, the Assyrian Empire bore down on the northern kingdom of Israel.
And this is where these Hebrew Israelites say that they're descendants of those
to
tribes.
be the real heavies. I guess you could call them the stormtroopers, the Prussians.
They need to prove it.
They created what many, in fact, would tell you was probably the most potent military machine of its age.
Yeah, they used to.
Sometime from about the end of the second millennium BCE, they began this inexorable march from their headquarters in the upper reaches of the Tigris, what is now eastern Iraq, the borders with Iran, and year after year, campaign after campaign, they just marched westwards. They marched as far as Israel, as far as the
people
coast.
they were invading were so scared of them that they're in fear. They trembled.
In 721
they used to
BCE,
like kill them and
the
chop the head off, put it
Assyrians
up on a
put to
wall.
the torch
Stuff
many
like that.
Israelite cities and
No,
deported most of the population.
Yeah, see, all these people got deported.
Most
be it
scholars
by ships
believe
or
that the
marched.
tribes were lost
Yeah?
because in exile they
Nothing to
could
do
not
with
have
the
held
future
on to
slavery.
their identities. They
It's all a
must have
fallacy.
assimilated.
It's all on the war reliefs. The Syrian war
We're talking
reliefs.
about 2700
After they invaded,
years
they
ago.
conquered.
There are historical
They
documentation,
boasted by
historical
putting it up on a wall.
records actually found in excavations from, say, the 5th century BC that record Israelite names in Assyria. So at that time, maybe they still existed there, or a trickle of them existed there. After that, there is nothing.
Yeah, that's where Abraham and his
So if
family
you
went.
look at it
Ur of Chaldea,
historically,
Mesopotamia,
all
Syria.
kinds of people were exiled
And then they like
and got
merged
lost.
there.
And I believe that the 10
Syrian
tribes
Aramaic
also
come
got
from there
lost.
with Katav Esri.
But what if they are not lost and have preserved the memory of their ancient origins? What if they are waiting in their millions for their prophesied return?
You know, before I was thinking, well, there's this verse in the Bible. I just clicked that. God will put it on their hearts, all that knowledge, you know, of Him, the traditions, etc., on their hearts, the love for Him on their hearts. So that's later on when I realised these people can't remember who they are. You know, they just know that they're Jewish, or they don't know why they do all these ancient customs, traditions, etc., like unleavened bread or matzvah, etc., like that, and all these other different things. They can't work out why until some rabbi happens to go there, you know, 50 years ago or whatever, or of late, and happens to walk past and see them doing these Jewish songs or chants or whatever, dances or whatever they're doing, and they wonder, hey, how the hell, you know? And these people say, well, we are Jewish, blah blah blah, right? And then he verifies that they are, you know, because how else would they know that stuff? Nobody from Israel taught them. You know? One guy watched a lot of people make matzvah, unleavened bread, for Passover. You know, he never gave them any clues, apparently, and they made it perfectly. They made these meals perfectly, these old traditional Jewish, Israelite, Hebrew meals, whatever. And this guy was amazed, you know, and he truly believed that they were one of the lost tribes. Okay. So they're a bunch of mixed people, mixed races, right? Mixed peoples. That's why they're called Semites. Yeah?
The hill country where Burma meets India is home to the people called Manmase or Manasseh, who are now claiming descent from the lost tribe of Menashe.
He's found a lost tribe in India.
So we went there. And what we found there is a war zone.
Was it?
Over and over, in pursuit of the tribes, we found ourselves in the middle of a war zone. And what's the war about? It's about territory and ethnicity. And these people that call themselves Manasseh are fighting a people called Naga, and the Naga are saying, their enemies are saying, you don't belong here. You know, and we know, that you're not from here. Would you ever think that on the Indian-Burmese border, there's a tribal conflict, and being an Israelite is part of the issue? This area is called Manipur. It swarms with insurrectionist groups, and the Indian government has responded by turning Manipur into a police state. The local mortuary receives daily deliveries of the victims of Naga violence.
Skip ahead a bit.
Yeah.
Because he ends up going to somewhere in China, and he finds a group called Kai Fang, known as Yuda, right, or Jews. They don't embrace the Chinese religions, Buddhism or
The rabbi has been
Confucianism.
researching the lost tribes for more than 35 years. He firmly believes that the Manasseh are indeed remnants of the tribe of Menashe, sent into exile 2,700 years ago.
So they were probably invaded by the Babylonians or the Assyrians. It sounds like the Assyrians, and then taken to Assyria, as he says, and made it into servants, etc. A lot of them were shipped off, obviously by ships, and family lots, not individuals, like the slave trade, right, where they separated women from children, or the Holocaust, where they did that similar sort of thing, right? They shipped them all off, the whole family, to somewhere else, okay, and etc. etc. And they became like teachers to the Assyrian children, okay, and probably passed on their knowledge, right? And that's how the Assyrians, ended up with this Kitab Ashut, or Assyrian, Aramaic, etc., etc. Okay, because of these wandering, lost tribes, Jews.
This particular tribe seems to have been a rather lowly tribe in the area, economically poor, socially on the lower scale of society, and to people like that, the idea that they may be related to some divine promise of a huge and glorious future may have a very big appeal. And when Rabbi Avichail came, he already found a tribe that has managed to convince itself that it belongs to the 10 lost tribes.
Yeah, they already knew. They had that funny feeling in their soul and
We
their heart.
believe to be a Jew is not by body. To be a Jew is by soul.
As it scripture says,
So you can be sometime
a spiritual Jew.
in all the generation to change your body here and there, but the soul remain after all Jewish soul. And I believe in all my heart that you people have Jewish soul.
Okay, so he goes on further and he
Maybe
finds
the evidence lay elsewhere.
other ones.
We return to the Assyrian reliefs,
Finds the whole
hoping that
team.
they could tell us their ancient story. From the Assyrian records, we learned that in the first assault, Assyria sacked 7 Israelite cities of the tribe of Naphtali and put the Naphtalites on the volatile border with Media.
Medes.
As the Assyrians lost ground to the Medes, the Israelites found themselves under Median rule in an empire that extended from modern Iran
So the
to
enemies of
Central
the
Asia.
Assyrians, like
Any Israelites living in Iran were later absorbed by mainstream Judaism.
King
It was
Ashurbanipal,
pointless to search here.
kept them at bay, all his enemies, and then when he died and fell apart, apparently, slowly
Perhaps
fell apart,
we
they
would
were
find the
overpowered
lost
by all the
Israelites
enemies.
behind the former Median Empire, along the superhighways of the ancient world, across Uzbekistan, on the road to China.
Yeah, we'll skip it forward, because he basically found like
Linking them to Israelites.
Israelites there, right? Their graves, whatever, but there's no markings on them. And then it's a war zone. Okay, and there's these people there, I think.
Not far from these tombs is a Jewish community of uncertain origin. The first clue that they are related to the lost tribes is the name Issacharov, common in this area and nowhere else. Issachar is one of the lost tribes, and many of the people here, including the local rabbi, claim Issachar as an ancestor. The Issachar lead did not take us any further, so we explored the Mahala, the Jewish quarter, to see if there was a connection to the tribe of Naphtali, also exiled to this area.
Okay, it goes on, and he finds this guy that he's got him
much named, many names, and enigmatic, mysterious tribe. Now, why is a tribe that ruled Central Asia for 200 years mysterious? You'd think you'd get to know them after the first 100 years of rule. The second sentence was revelatory as well, because it says they were known to medieval writers as Ephthalites and Nephtalites.
You found the lost tribe of
It seemed
Naphtali.
to us that the Nephtalites must have been the lost tribe of Naphtali, but we wanted some hard archaeological evidence.
So you found this guy here.
We went to the Tashkent Institute of Archaeology, where we gained access to a restricted facility containing a treasure of ancient artifacts. Among them, 2,200-year-old potsherds, clearly displayed on the ancient clay, is Aramaic script,
Yeah,
the
ancient
day-to-day
Aramaic.
language of the Israelite tribes.
Probably Kitab Esri.
Here we
Esri.
also met Professor Usmanova, a semi-retired archaeologist.
And what does she have? She has, wrapped in a tea towel, a 1,700-year-old religious ritual object with Hebrew writings, with an Israelite name, with ram's horns. A religious object of Israelite origin from exactly the area that the lost tribes went to 1,000 years after they supposedly disappeared.
Unbeknownst,
Okay, skip that. Skip that bit. Because he finds another guy who shows him some amazing stuff.
we continued along the Silk Route towards China. The city of Kaifeng was the capital city of the Han Dynasty. Following the Nephthalite Trail, we learned that the Chinese records say that the Nephtalites were here. They were labeled Jews or Yuda by the Chinese. It is virtually impossible to identify a Jew in Kaifeng today. But there was one government official who was willing to talk.
There was a Jewish community, but now there is no more Jewish community. There is no Jewish community anymore. Only a few families. This is the synagogue, former site of a synagogue.
Okay. And can you write also here the two family names?
Only for your reference.
I understand.
And most likely, and you will be refused.
这个没有。No no no no，不带绕，我帮你问一下。
We did not find lost tribes in China waiting in their millions. But could the last Jews of Kaifeng help us in our quest?
About 300 years ago, our synagogue ceased to exist. Without the synagogue, there was no place for the Jews to congregate. Without a congregation, there were no more rabbis. Without the congregation, without the rabbis, Without the religious rituals or readings of the scriptures, there was no more worship. Nothing was left.
Nonetheless, to this day, there are Chinese people in Kaifeng whose identity papers still describe them as Jews, Yuda.
Yudai, this is his name, right?
Yes.
Does he think he is a Jew?
他问你显得你是不是自己还感觉你是好是我是犹太人？是这样，是这样。
Yes, 是。
我在我民族意识还是有的，民族意识，民族意识。
Amidst the mementos of the last Jews of Kaifeng, we thought, is it possible that the Manasseh of India and Burma are the remnants of an unknown exodus?
Okay, skip that.
Look at this picture.
Going through it pretty fast.
A picture which shows how the Torah is being brought from Ethiopia to Israel. See how great it is? The Ethiopian Jews were like us. They had great reverence for the covenant and studied the Torah with great dedication. They loved Torah. Here they enter Jerusalem, bringing their Torah with them. With great joy, we too will soon enter Jerusalem.
Thousands of Manasseh have now forsaken Christianity and adopted Orthodox Judaism. Could these people really be Manasseh? Because if they are, we may have identified as many as 4 of the 10 lost tribes of Israel. Manasseh, Dan being the Ethiopians, and Issachar and Naphtali among the Bukharan Jews of Central Asia. And if we were right to think of the Bukharans as the descendants of Naphtali, then maybe we should be looking for Zebulon, because Zebulon was the brother tribe of Naphtali in ancient Israel. And history records that at the same time as the Naphtalites were ruling Central Asia in the 5th and 6th centuries, another tribe was ruling parts of Afghanistan, Pakistan, and India. This tribe was called Zavula. So maybe we could find in the Indian subcontinent, not on the border of Burma, descendants of the Zavula, just as we had found descendants of the Naphtalites in Central Asia. In the course of our research, we repeatedly came across a little-known group in India that could not be easily related to other Jews. So we made our way to Bombay in search of Zebulon. Bombay is home to 8 million Hindus and 1 million Muslims. Here we found a community numbering about 5,000 that by all accounts should have assimilated into the dominant culture long ago. And though they do not call themselves by any particular tribal name, significantly, like the lost tribes, and unlike other Jews, they call themselves the children of Israel, not Judah.
I am not Yehudi, I am Bnei Israel. Yehudis, those Jews who migrated to India from Baghdad. My family is Bnei Israel.
His family's been Israel.
300 years ago, a Jewish merchant traveling through the coastal region was stunned to see Indian peasants chanting Jewish prayers. Fascinated, he stopped to inquire as to how they knew these prayers, and was shocked when they replied that they were Israelites who had lived in India from ancient times. Skeptical of these claims, the merchant visited a village and presented the Bnei Israel with an assortment of fish to be made into a meal, some kosher, some not. When he saw that the villagers knew which fish were kosher, he was convinced that they were an Israelite community and he helped them return to Judaism.
Now, how would they know that? They weren't descendants of a Jewish tribe. How would somebody know how to make matzah, unleavened bread, if nobody taught them?
Unique to the Bnei Israel community is the Melida ceremony, which is a kind of offering of rice, scented flowers, and fruit.
And he finds meaning
Though they had
more.
forgotten the reasons behind some of their practices, the Bnei Israel had clung to them as something precious to be passed through the
They've
generations.
forgotten it all, but probably in their subconscious, in their heart, you know, the scripture, God said that He'll put it in their hearts,
And when they got an opportunity
in their minds.
of being told as to what the meaning was of that particular thing, they were only too happy. Why should they lose? And nobody forced us. If they had said, no, you must become Hindus or you must become Mohammedans, but nobody ever forced us because we were such a minority in the whole population of India. Nobody worried about us.
But what if they were not always a tiny minority? What if the mysterious rulers of northern India in the 5th and 6th centuries were indeed the lost tribe of Zebulon?
Interesting.
The Bnei Israel community's own historian, his name was Chaim Kar, wrote a book about the Bnei Israel at the turn of the 20th century. He believed that they are descendants of the lost tribes. He thought the tribes were scattered to the ends of the earth, and some made their way to India. He talks about various practices they have, and compares them to the rituals of the Jerusalem temple. For example, the Melida ceremony.
Okay, I'm going to jump to this one. He finds, all of them, but this one in particular is kind of bizarre because they're semi-Muslims. They're under Islamic law. Eye for
The
an
whole
eye.
world knows this area
Adultery,
as a hotbed of
you die.
Islamic fundamentalism. There are 15 million Pathans and not a
Islamic
single Jew among them.
Pathans.
But we set out to investigate whether under the Islamic surface lies an Israelite past.
This is where
The
it's
first
really
clue
extreme.
was the fact that the Pathans claimed to descend from Afghan, son of King Saul of Israel. From their perspective, Afghanistan is an Israelite name. At worship, they seem like any other Muslims. When studying the Quran, however, they rock their bodies in the manner of
Like
Jews.
that. Jews in Jerusalem and the war. You know that.
To this day, it is an
Supposedly
ancient code
simulation
called
of something.
Puftunwali, rather than Islamic law, which commands their ultimate loyalty.
It is said about Pushtun, you know, Pushtun is really is a fifth region itself. Is not. We have got our own code of conduct, and not that whatever the Quran says Pushtun, I believe in that. We don't do much of the things which are not conveyed by Quran really. That's why it is said, it is a proverb that Pushtun nim Quran namani, or Pushtu pinzam mazhab diwali. You know?
Puhtuwali, the code of the Puhtu. And what is this Puhtuwali? It's basically Old Testament law in a kind of unforgiving way, where you don't have any kind of rabbinical softening of it. Eye for an eye means eye for an eye, literally. Adultery, you're finished.
If there is a conflict between your own Puhtunwali law and Islam, which do the Pathans choose?
Our customs are those of the Pushtun, or Pathan. There are 11 Pathan tribes in the Khyber. We all have the same customs. The main law here is the Islamic Sharia. But we Pathan follow our own specific Pukhtunwali customs. For example, according to Islam, there must be established evidence for the conviction of adultery. You cannot convict anyone without sufficient evidence of fact. But according to Puchtenwali, if there is even the slightest suspicion of an illegitimate relationship between a man and a woman, both are convicted and killed. The matter is closed, and there is nothing left to discuss.
Very fundamentalist. They don't muck around. They're not
As in
bunch
the
of
Bible,
softies.
the Pathans still engage in animal sacrifices for religious purposes.
I am of the Musahel, the people of Moses. We make sacrifices of sheep. For example, at a wedding festival, our elders would sacrifice 4 sheep. Today, when times are good, a man can sacrifice 10 sheep. We make these sacrifices to please God and the people too. Also, some people used to light oil lamps on Friday nights to ask for forgiveness and blessings from God. Such are our traditions.
We are in a country that is supposedly dominated by Muslims, but not Muslims, just any Muslims, Muslim fundamentalism. And yet we come face to face with people that say we are Musahel. We are from the people of Moses.
So they're under the Islamic fundamentalism, but strangely enough, they can do their
And as we travel
traditions,
among these
customs.
people who look like they stepped off the pages of the
Step out of the way,
Bible,
you get Shia.
Semitic faces, long beards, biblical garb, prayer shawls. And as the evidence mounted, we could not help but feel that maybe here among the Pathans of Afghanistan and Pakistan, we would find the answers to our quest.
We were astounded to learn that the Pathans adhere to biblical laws that were thought to have disappeared thousands of years ago. As in the Bible, those accused of manslaughter can escape to designated cities of refuge.
It is mentioned in our old books that if you kill someone unintentionally, then you can flee to a designated place of refuge. Our books tell us that Moses ordered Joshua to establish cities of refuge and told the people that they should honor them. Today, we educated people think it is backwards to protect a criminal in this way, but the people in those areas of refuge look upon the matter as holy.
Traditional.
To protect a fugitive is the sacred job of the elders. They treat him as their guest.
That's strange. There's another one, I don't know if you got to it yet, but there's another faction. They're like Asians. They're very militant.
The Pathans are trapped in time, tenaciously adhering to their ancient ways. They've lived.
Yeah, they're very militant because some felt, well, somebody invaded, burnt their house, killed their uncle, whatever. So it's a revenge payback. So they became militants, armed themselves, and this Jacobovici guy was saying, well, they could present a problem because they're creating this army, and if they go back, they answer the call to go back to Israel, they may start some trouble there, and it may, according to him, start an apocalypse, right? Fight, amongst the other Jews and stuff like that. So he's a bit worried about that one. Okay, and goes into it some more. Okay, it's quite lengthy.
The one place we hadn't been to look for the one tribe that we had made no contact with, and just a few hundred kilometers down the road, off the coast of Tunisia, there's an island.
Yeah, this is what he couldn't find. So they got a tip off.
Community that have been there since biblical times.
Yeah, there's another one that he came across that he was sort of bound, like.
The name of the island is Jerba.
Had to keep things secret,
it's home
but
to a
he
Jewish
revealed
community that
his
Tunisians
museum,
value
all
for
the
its
stuff,
silversmiths.
right? Yeah, because of the law, he was a bit iffy. But yeah, they had all this ancient Israelite
the
stuff
Jewish
there.
community in Jerba is the oldest community in Jewry in the whole world. Some of them, they say that the Jewish community was established even before the construction of the first temple.
What we now learned is that the community split into two distinct quarters. One for Spanish Jews who arrived here in the 16th century, and one made up not of Asherites, but of Cohens, and no one else.
Yeah. This Rabbi Tovia Singer, he claims to be a Cohen, but he's not a ritually clean.
There is a small quarter on the island
according
near
to
the
these
ancient synagogue.
Cohens.
There's a bigger Jewish neighborhood called the Large Quarter. The larger quarter is mainly made up of Jews who arrived here after their expulsion from Spain. Also, other Jews of various ethnic backgrounds came to live there. The smaller quarter, on the other hand, is made up essentially of Cohen priests who arrived here after the destruction of the first temple in Jerusalem in biblical times.
I am from the Joseph Cohen family. I have it from my father and my father's father that our tradition is that we came from the priestly neighborhood. We are Cohens, and it is 2,000 years that we have been living here on this tiny island.
The story goes that this community was founded in biblical times by temple priests that quarreled with the religious hierarchy in Jerusalem. Here, they found a place of refuge, setting up the Griba synagogue, which locals still consider one of the holiest sites in Judaism. According to the Cohen's tradition, the Griba contains a treasure trove of gold and silver relics, destined for use by the Cohen priests in the future Jerusalem temple to be erected after the apocalypse.
It's rebuilt.
The sacred treasure is supposedly buried beneath the shrine. In a crawl space under the main sanctuary, we did not find any relics. What we did find, however, is the foundation stone whose original inscriptions, if there were any, had been covered by the black soot of countless candles.
Because I think you said you apparently need these Cohens.
Buried treasure or not, what is clear is that the Cohens of Jerba have maintained a communal priestly tradition found nowhere else in the world.
You know, Jerba is the island of Cohen priests. All are Cohens.
Are you a Cohen?
Yes, and so is he.
When did you Cohens get here?
With Ezra the scribe in biblical times, it's a heritage passed on from generation to generation. We are some of the very few Kohanim who have the authentic priestly lineage from those days up to the present.
The Asherites had eluded us, but they did lead us to the Cohens. It appears that if needed, temple priests are available to bring in the Messianic age, ensuring that the return of the tribes would not be in vain.
Apparently they cleanse the temple ritually, the only ones that can do it, because they're ritually clean. Other ones in the West aren't.
There is a divine promise in the Bible that the tribes will return, that they will be united, that they will prosper and grow. And this is a promise that was uttered by many of the prophets, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, in very flowery language, in very nice metaphors like in Ezekiel. But now there is a flaw. There is a promise hanging there which has not been fulfilled.
Yeah, so what's the flaw? F-L-A-W, not flaw. It's in your house.
If the divine promise is fulfilled, millions believe that this place, Armageddon, will be at the center of events.
This is his assumption, right?
It is here that long ago Israelite tribes put up one of their fiercest battles against the Assyrians. But the new age will be heralded only when the descendants of those ancient warriors
return. Daniel Benjamin is one of the few who have made it from the India-Burma border to Israel. If he is from the lost tribe of Menashe, he is one of the first Israelites to serve in the Jewish army in nearly 3,000 years.
Wow. It's a wailing war.
The very first time I came here, all my thoughts, everything that was in my mind, was about my father, of blessed memory, who passed to the next world before he got the opportunity to come here, to our country. So the first time I arrived in this place, I cried in my heart. My dream is that every one of the B'nai Menashe, at least 1 million or 2, will come here with God's help. Our young people will then go into the army and will build the land of Israel, and in the end, Messiah will come and rebuild the Holy Temple. I pray for this. I pray that the ingathering takes place and that Messiah will lead it.
Seeing Daniel pray next to an Ethiopian Israeli, I couldn't help but wonder if the story had come full circle, if the tribes of Dan and Menashe had begun the long prophesied return of the lost Israelites. The lost tribes of Israel are no longer lost. The lost tribes of Israel have never been lost. What was lost is our consciousness. What was lost is our sensitivity to parts of the world that are not Western. We were lost to them. They have never been lost to themselves.
Apparently he came across a Muslim that says that, or somebody that can read the Hebrew or Aramaic on this old rock. And he says, be careful because some Muslims in that region don't like the idea.
The Israelites were given a prophetic
Jewish
promise
and you can read it.
That once
he says,
the
how did you know how to
made,
read it? And he
there
says,
would be
because
a
he's
bright
Jewish.
messianic future,
This Simcha,
and the staff of Judah would be
like a Dutch
rejoined
Jew.
with the staff of Joseph. The tribes finally reunited. These people now believe that their nearly 3,000-year exile is over, and that their redemption is at hand. Celebrating with their rabbi, they proclaim not the beginning of the end, but the beginning of a new beginning.
Yeah, for them. Yeah, so if you found that interesting, subscribe to our channel, add your comments, give us a like, and to go tell your friends, wow, just watched this fantastic video from the Ministry of the Real Truth, and he's just basically revealed that the 12 tribes of Israel chart, according to these Hebrew Israelites, etc., is incorrect. It's flawed. Okay, the Mexicans, the Indians, South Pacific Islands, etc., there's no relation to that. Okay, because these tribes were found, okay, and that's where they were found. These lost 10 tribes, right? So they may have trickled out. People may have gone overseas and trickled out, right? But the origins where they were found are in these far eastern countries. So all this here, their claims here are false. Okay, go watch the video, come to your own understanding, your own views and opinions. Do your personal research, add it up, and you'll find that we're probably correct. Okay, this is all false, right? Okay, according to that documentary, if that documentary is true, right, it's not a farce, then yeah, this is all incorrect. There's no Mexican Issachars, there's no etc, etc, right? So yeah, if you like this, then again subscribe to our channel, give us a thumbs up, a like, right? Set that notification bell so you don't miss out on any other videos like this that we put up, that we upload. Yeah, we're just basically exposing the truth, exposing the revealing the truth, exposing the false claims, the false teachings, corrupt teachings, etc. of these different movements out there that are leading the people down the wrong path. Okay, so we will see you on the next exciting video. I might just leave you to have a look at these rest of these pictures for a while there.